Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the 2023 annual meeting of the Rhode Island Wild Plant Society. My name is Pete Lakacher. I'm the president of the society for the next half hour. If people up in the back have trouble hearing me or other speakers, please just wave your arms and we'll move closer to the microphone. I want to start off with an introduction. Just some highlights about this past year. Our board and most of our committee meetings have continued to be by Zoom. I'm not sure we'll ever go back to in-person board meetings because Zoom is so convenient. We get people from Exeter and South County and Little Compton, and they all get together and don't have long drives. But we have had some good in-person gatherings, walks, our 35th anniversary celebration here last fall, and 3 spectacular plant sales. The finances of the organization are good. Our publications are great. The monthly e-news, which is under Pat Foley's able guidance. Wild Flora Rhode Island, which has been Ann Raver's baby for a number of years, and it's being passed on to Beatrice Pulliam this year. Welcome to Beatrice. Congratulations. The Rhode Island Wild Plant Society website is good, and we have a new Instagram presence that I hope you'll check out. Finally, you'll be hearing a lot about Receding Rhode Island today. Just a few highlights from the past year. This is the June plant sale at URI. The upper right corner is the line waiting. The big picture on the left is at the height of the plant sale, and the lower right is what was left after a couple of hours. Here we are at the August plant sale at Patuxent Village Farmers Market. Again, on the left is getting ready, and on the right, the customers swarmed the market. We had a number of walks and hikes. This happens to be one led by Brian Maynard at, I believe it was Blue Pond in Hopkinton. And then finally, we're doing some work. This is Seed Starters West expansion of the shade area, which is still in progress. Dan Rakowski is our crew chief, and the left-hand picture is Dan trying to show my 17-year-old grandson how it's done. Upper right picture is the crew from the second day, and the lower right is the current status. We've got to get out there and finish it when the weather gets better. I'd like to call on Mary O'Connor to recognize our departed volunteers.
Is this fine in terms of sound?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. A member of the founding group of RIWPS.
Can you use the microphone?
Is this on?
But you got to talk right into it.
Oh, just talking to Peters. Okay. A member of the founding group of RIWPS, Johnny Stone relished being a part of the small community that began the legacy of learning about plants from one another, then putting that knowledge into practice. Her years of attending to whatever needed to be done shaped the volunteer culture of RIWPS. Maggie Downs' gifts of exuberance characterized decades of volunteering. To the list of walks were added full-day adventures. And this exuberance could generate responses to basic questions about plants, responses that produced extended conversations on topics ranging from gardening philosophy to where to travel to see the plant in the field, or even how to draw the plant. Debbie Van Dam enjoyed writing about plants. She served many years on our Wild Flora editorial advisory board. Her practical, methodical approach was never more needed nor more appreciated than when, in 2006, she played a key role in fundraising to ensure that RIWPS stayed solvent. She helped RIWPS survive a difficult moment when financial challenges threatened to hobble the organization. Janet White committed her efforts to cultivating younger generations. Through her work on the Conservation Education Fund, elementary children were able to participate in nature programs offered by the Audubon Society. She helped provide elementary schools with posters and other materials about Rhode Island native plants.
Thank you, Mary. We're now going to give out some awards. We give out Volunteer of the Year Award, and we give out Lifetime Service Award. And we have 4 people making presentations for 4 awards. Helen, Drew, could you come down and make the first award? And would you bring Gail Anderson with you, please?
My parents won't make room for me to get by. You okay on the steps? Are you too nervous? Here we go. 1, 2, here we are.
Okay, right, come right in.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Or is it afternoon?
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Helen Drew, and this is Gail Anderson, and we both just happen to be part of Seed Starters West, and we're very proud that Gail's being recognized. So I just want to give you a clue as to the sort of things that Gail brings to her work with the Seed Starters. She has tremendous energy, which is great. There's no shortage of, oh, we can do that. That's okay. We can make that happen. And she has a deep knowledge of plants in the Rhode Island, what grows here, what doesn't grow here, how to make it grow here. So that's also a reservoir for some of the people who are new and some of us who might forget from time to time that we have this wonderful resource in Gail in that regard. And as a worker at Seed Starter at our greenhouse and planting, she's open to ideas. It's great. If you have an idea, tell Gail. She'll either say, are you crazy? Or she'll say, that's a good idea. Let's think about it. Let's look at it. Let's look at a way we can do that. So it encourages people to participate and to be part of the picture. And all this means is that she's a good leader. And that means she gets along with everybody very nicely too. And she's thinking ahead of where we need to go, what needs to happen to make Seed Starters West a very vibrant group. And also, she's a good communicator. Now, the best of all is that she's lots of fun to work with. So it's just great. Congratulations.
I have to receive this now, don't I?
Huh?
I don't know what I'm getting.
Yeah, here's the gift.
Oh, the gift. I'll hold it for you.
I see that Gail has some notes in her hand. Is this, are you?
I thought I should say thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, please. But it's not the Oscars.
No, that's tomorrow. I want to say thank you for this recognition, especially to whoever nominated me and the awards committee. I also want to express my gratitude for the Wild Plant Society as an entity. I know it was started, 35 years ago. A bunch of people put energy into this, and for the last 35 years, people have continued to do so. And I know it was meant for the environment and the plants and the pollinators, but turns out to have been a really good thing for me too. So thank you. Oh, here's your card.
I should say that the awards committee is Mary O'Connor and Susan Marcus. The second Volunteer of the Year award is Brenda Woodward, who I understand is not here, So Dave Desault, who is going to make the presentation, will come up, he'll make the presentation, we'll give the gift to him, and then he'll thank the committee for the presentation on her behalf.
Thank you, Peter. So Brenda wanted to be here, but she's suffering through that 80-degree weather in Florida.
Oh.
And she said she does enjoy the cocktails as she watches the sunset, but that she's here in spirit. So I met Brenda. She became a URI Master Gardener in 2021. And she volunteered at Kettle Pond Native Plant Garden, and that's where I really got to know her. She also volunteers at Wilcox Park, a native plant area. And then also she has written articles for the Dirt for URI Master Gardeners. But she became also a project leader for Kettle Pond. And it was at that particular time where we were trying to work a collaborative process between Rhode Island Wild Plant Society and the Reseeding Project with the URI Master Gardeners. So it required a lot of paperwork, a lot of energy and so forth. And that's where Brenda's skills started to really shine. There was a lot of demands for detail and organization, et cetera. And she just filled that bill to the max. She's just this boundless energy. But I think a paragraph that was written in the report at our website that really sums it up. It says Brenda anticipates what is needed and is proactive in seeking solutions. For example, plant labels created, printed, and delivered. How about a PowerPoint presentation with an overview of native plants of the Reseeding Project? Done. Attention to details and organization, her specialty. From conservation amongst interested parties, she produced clear and concise documents to forge partnerships out of piles of details ranging from information about plant species to inventorying supplies. So Brenda notes that she really enjoys doing whatever she can to make the project work. And she recently wrote, the timing of the Reseeding Rhode Island Committee is spot on, appropriate as the world starts to really appreciate the power of the native plants. We appreciate all of your hard work, Brenda, and your can-do spirit. And this is why we are pleased to award you the Rhode Island Wild Plant Society Volunteer of the Year. If it's money, I'll make sure there's enough of it there. Thanks so much, Peter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have two Lifetime Service Awards. First is Nancy Weiss-Fried. Mary O'Connor will present. Mary, Nancy.
Sorry. Nancy. Whoops. Uh-oh. I hit the screen.
Oh, God. There we go.
Don't touch the buttons. Nancy, I think it is safe to say that you have the gift of focus. Starting with RIWPS first class on native plants taught by Lisa Gould in 1988, you made a commitment to learn about them, including, as you said, to make them your own by mastering their names. Along the way, you earned a degree in landscape architecture and a certificate in field botany. After dabbling in different volunteer capacities, you zoned in on the plant sales, dedicating your energies to increasing the inventory of plants. You accomplished this, first by digging and dividing from your own garden. You made how and when to do this a science so that plants would flourish on the day of the sale. Then came your encouraging of others to do the same, knowing, of course, that the dividing process encourages the original plant to flourish and bloom. After that came the forays across the state. When you and others, replete with the necessary gardening tools, repeated this process on the lands of RIWPS friends and members. You share the vision of the late plant sale chairwoman, Sandra Thompson, to make a plant sale not only an educational outreach opportunity, but a major fundraiser. I know you also shared a special bond with Sandra, crisscrossing the states, potting, and then tending these donated plants. The number of these plants eventually outgrew the available space at the Plainview greenhouse, where Seed Starters East propagated and cultivated plants for the sales. Hence began the spring ritual of these bounty potted plants popping up all along the Thompsons' long driveway, until suddenly disappearing right before the dates of the plant sales. You champion plants suited for ground cover and for small garden spaces. You convince customers that even the teeniest of gardens and the smallest of containers are well served by native plants. You made it possible to select plants to match different growing conditions and to accommodate different gardening styles, bringing beauty and nature in multiple forms into all our daily lives. You are a testament for what can be achieved through steady, incremental efforts. In your case, efforts spanning 35 years. Congratulations. Somebody write yes, yes. There's your name there. Thank you.
Congratulations, Nancy. Our second Lifetime Service Award goes to Mary Lou Upland. Mary Lou, are you here? Oh, there she is. Susan Marcus was going to present this award, but she also is apparently out of state today, so she's asked me to read the tribute that she has written to Mary Lou. The Rhode Island Wild Plant Society has been lucky over the years to be powered by many passionate volunteers, but Mary Lou Upland definitely stands out as one of the most dedicated. You may quibble. She's not a volunteer. She's paid to be our office manager. But this assignment comes in addition to virtually every volunteer capacity known to RIWPS. She serves stints as co-president. Mary Lou, let me get you a chair.
Peter, I'm okay standing.
Are you okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not that old.
Okay. She serves stints as co-president, president, treasurer, plant sale plant digger, flower show volunteer, public relations officer, publications printer and mailer, membership chair, donor liaison, archivist, storage room guardian, equipment purchaser and fixer, meeting snack baker. In short, she has held every position except seed starter. We're going to try and get her into that this spring. Invaluable as her fulfillment of each of those tasks has been, the list of her jobs doesn't capture her ineffable qualities. Mary Lou is organized, efficient, tireless. She is also cheerful, generous, unflappable, and above all, kind. Lisa Gould has suggested that we clone her. She'll take the first copy for the North Carolina Native Plant Society. Let me tell you about one of Mary Lou's projects that spans all her job titles. While working as she did for the Rhode Island Historical Society, Mary Lou came across illustrations by Edward Lewis Peckham, a 19th century Providence-born artist. The Historical Society has an astonishing portfolio of nearly 200 of Peckham's botanical watercolors that are exacting studies of native Rhode Island wildflowers. Peckham used pencil, India ink, sepia, and watercolors to make what are practically photographs, in many cases, of the entire plant, root, stem, leaf, and flower. Mary Lou organized a unique collaboration between Brown's John Hay Library, the Brown Herbarium, the Rhode Island Historical Society, and RIWPS to mount a stellar exhibition called Entwined: Botany, Art, and the Lost Cat Swamp Habitat, an exhibition celebrating art and science. The exhibit paired Peckham's illustrations with Brown University's herbarium specimens to document the diversity of flora in the now lost Cat Swamp area of Providence. The exhibition was a couple of years in the making. In addition to the usual curatorial tasks of mounting an exhibition, Mary Lou diplomatically navigated territorial issues of where and how to display the work. By the time the exhibition opened, you can be sure she had won the respect of all her counterparts, secured the stature of RIWPS as a foundational Rhode Island organization, and attended to every detail, no matter how small. We are honored to present a Lifetime Award to Mary Lou.
I want to say something.
Okay, here you go.
Okay.
Right into it.
I'll talk right into it.
Right on your face.
I'll get my cheat note here. I just want to say I've been honored to get this Lifetime Award because I'm joining the ranks of a lot of good people. And it's been fun, and I've had a good time working together with everyone and on all these projects. And I've learned a lot from everybody and just doing these things. So I'm real pleased to be a part of the team. Hey. That's me picking huckleberries.
Yeah, that's Mary Lou picking huckleberries. Okay.
Yeah, and you say they were
Next, we have our grants, our 2023 grants. Paul Dolan will announce the grants. Gotta put this right in your face.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Usually I don't need one of these things, but I won't howl. Like to first thank our Lifetime Achievement person, Mary Lou Upham and Sue Schuster, who helps me on this committee. It's a very difficult thing. Grants are highly competitive. It's like, how do you turn around and take awardees that want $27,500 and put it in a $10,000 bag? Once again, very competitive. Not everyone gets a grant, and a lot of them are scaled down and moved around. We had 13 people that applied, 9 received awards. Our first one went to Ryan Brancato, who's working on an Ag Innovative Farm Program over in Eastern Bay. It was our purchase of native plant materials for pollinator hedgerow for $1,000. Wendy Brennan received a grant for $1,000. They're working at purchasing plant materials to redo the front of the Warren Post Office. Sophie Cleveland with the Norman Bird Sanctuary received a grant for $1,000. Purchase of native plant materials to rehabilitate an area that had been taken over by invasives. Franklin and Bruckner, Randall Park, $400 native plant materials to support the Randall Park program and their pollinator garden. Casey Johnson, research assistant at URI, $2,000 native plant shrubs to research plants available with a focus on early plants that are available for pollinators. Julia Kaplan, the Chocolate Mill Overlook Park in Central Falls, received a grant for $1,500. Purchase of native plant materials for urban native plant garden for pollinators and erosion control. Lee Smith with the Davis Park Community Garden, $2,000 for native plant and shrubs for urban demonstration areas. Adam York received a grant for $300 with the Seconic Preservation Association for native plant purchases. Lizzie Hunt, working on eco-type guides, received a grant for $800 for booklets with detailed information about eco-type plants for a total of $10,000. We'd like to congratulate all our awardees and thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And Susan and Mary Lou as the committee. Our bylaws require, before we have an election, that we set the number of trustees. The nominating committee has proposed a slate with 12 trustees plus 4 officers who serve as trustees ex officio. So we need a vote to set the number of trustees at 16. Do we have a motion to that effect? Do we have a second? We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I will now turn it over to Brian Maynard, who's the chair of the nominating committee. The other members of the committee are David Bissau, Sue Terrio, and Beatrice Pulliam.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Beatrice, and I don't know where Sue is, and I know Dave is here, so thank you for the committee for helping me with this. So we're proposing a slate of officers. That would be Pat Foley as our incoming president, and these are all for 2-year terms. Dave Visco as our vice president, myself continuing as treasurer, and Mary O'Connor continuing as secretary. For the positions of trustees at large, which is a 1-year appointment, we have continuing with us Peggy Buttonbaum, Paul Dolan, Amanda Freitas, Summer Gonzalez, Nikki Hagan, Peter Lockucher, Susan Marcus, Beatrice Pulliam, Dorothy Swift, and Susan Therio. Then joining 2 new trustees, Suzanne Borstein and Brenda Woodward. Respectfully submitted.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like a motion to accept the slate of officers and trustees as presented. Do I have a second? Okay, you're the boss.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the slate as presented, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian. We have 4 board members who are leaving the board. I'm going to call on a couple of other board members to say a few things about them. Brian? There, look at that.
Okay, every year, everybody has a chance to leave the board of trustees, and everybody has good reasons. Nathan Lamb came on a year ago and has 2 young children, is now teaching courses at URI, and has a busy horticultural consulting and garden business of his own, and it's just too much. So I totally have an understanding of that, and so he is asked to go off of the board of trustees, though he is an active member of RIWPS and is leading a number of walks this summer. So thank you, Nathan, for your service, and thank you for continuing to be involved with RIWPS.
Marnie Lockucher joined the board 3 years ago, along with her husband Peter, as a part of the Lockucher team. She brought her years of well-honed plant expertise, as well as her much appreciated experience in plant sales. And then, of course, there were her perspectives on working on wild flora. Marnie, where are you? Thank you for all of this and so much more. Ann Raver's 5-year tenure on the board has been intertwined with her work as the editor of Wild Flora. Her role incorporating ever more sophisticated knowledge on the ecological functioning of native plants in our work deserves special recognition and our abiding gratitude as well. And I would also add that both of them are continuing their activities for RIPS and getting a little extra time to do some other things. So thank you.
Dick Fisher, where are you? I don't see you. Oh, awesome. Can you hear me? Okay. I promised Peter 5 lines, but it got longer. All right, so Dick Fisher has shared so many of his talents with RIPS since he became a member 16 years ago. First and foremost in my mind, Dick is an amazing grower of shrubs. Over the year, he has grown, I think it is safe to say, thousands of shrubs in his backyard nursery for donation to our sales. If you have ever bought a bayberry, winterberry, sweet pepper bush, some kind of dogwood, the list is very long. It was probably grown by Dick. Not only does Dick know how to grow shrubs, but he shares that knowledge through a tour of his backyard or to a broader audience with his contributions to our cultivation notes, because Dick is both a writer and an illustrator. These cultivation notes are first published in the Wild Flora and are then archived on the RIPS website in easy-to-print PDFs. They are a gem. Dick himself has written at least 8, and I encourage you to check them out. Dick has been writing for Wild Flora since he got here and was its chief editor for many years. Look for his upcoming article in our next edition coming out in June. Growing and writing are more quiet activities, but the multifaceted Dick Fisher has another talent, and that is he is a leader. Dick was president of RIPS for 4 years, and he has been instrumental in planning events and speakers. But this is what I think is the coolest example of Dick Fisher's willingness to lead. Instead of winding down and sailing off through the sunset, Dick is sprinting across the finish line. He agreed to be part of the Receiving Rhode Island project right from the start, and as a member of our steering committee, endures Zoom calls every 2 weeks and grapples with all of the decisions we have to make. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. The picture I'm referring to is Dick's face on the Zoom screen. I can tell by subtle shifts in his expression how he is thinking. And with all of his years of experience, his knowledge and plain old common sense, that thinking has been invaluable to this young project. People do not always realize the positive impact that they have made on others or their organization, and I really hope that Dick Fisher does, because it's been enormous. Thank you, Dick.
I thought it would be appropriate to ask Pat Foley, who is the newly elected president of the Wild Plant Society, to come down and offer a few comments if you'd like to.
Thank you, Pete. Is this sort of the formal passing of the microphone? I don't know that it's auspicious to be taking over the role on a snowy day in March, but we'll make the best of it because spring will be here soon enough. I did want to say thank you to everybody that's supported me as Judy and I have learned about native plants in our last few years here in Rhode Island as transplants at that time from Massachusetts. So it's been a learning experience, and many people sitting in this room and some who are not able to be here with us today have contributed to us really learning to appreciate wild plants the way that we do. Those that know me well know that brevity is not one of my outstanding virtues. I will attempt to exercise some discipline so that we can get on with the agenda here today. But I do want to say how great it is to see so many members of the society here today. Organizations that are successful are the ones that have really engaged, interested, and interesting members. And I appreciate, too, all the many volunteers that help us to be successful. I look forward to working with all of you in the next couple of years as we continue to advance the Society's work and help to support the wild plants throughout Rhode Island that are so important to all of us. So thank you for the trust you put in me, And I hope that it will pay off for all of us. So.
Thank you, Pat. Good luck. I'm going to call Sue Terrio back up to make a presentation. Sue?
I don't think I have a presentation.
Some comments on a presentation. How about that? Oh, okay. Here you go.
Bill Terrio. There's a package that I forgot to bring down. Right, awesome. God, I love that sign. All right. I would like to say a few words about Mike Medeiros. Yes. Mike, my first words are, I've never seen you without a hat on. It's, I recognize you back there. Okay. Mike is the owner and operator of Plainview Nursery in Portsmouth. Plainview Nursery is where our Seed Starter group has been since 1991. Mike is a propagator of rhododendrons, deciduous azaleas, and mountain laurels. He wholesales his plants all along the East Coast, from Maine to Texas, and out to Michigan and Ohio, and to nurseries that then move them up and grow them on. While other smaller nurseries have closed over the years, Mike has remained in business since he bought the Portsmouth property and built the nursery in the 1970s, almost 50 years ago. To propagate the many, many species that he works with and to maintain their unique and sought after characteristics, Mike primarily uses a vegetative form of propagation known as micropropagation. On the second floor of the Plainview building, where only one seed starter volunteer has ever been, there is a tissue culture or cloning lab. So if there was ever a chance to clone Mary Lou Upham, I would say you need to seize the moment. Peter, can you change the slides? I'm just afraid to touch it. All right, who knows who that one volunteer is who's been in the tissue culture lab? There she is. All right, flashback to the mid-1980s. You have your leg warmers on. You can't stop watching Flashdance. Along comes. No, you need Dorothy. Okay. Along comes Dorothy, a young scientist with 3 different part-time jobs and a love of rhododendrons. In Dorothy's words, I love rhododendrons, so I couldn't resist growing them in a test tube. And Dorothy was good at it. A URI professor actually named a cultivar after her because of her skills and tenaciousness in cloning. I can hear Dorothy. She says, but Sue, this is not about me, it's about Mike. But it was Dorothy's history and her relationship with Mike that enabled Seed Starters to have its first home. So Mike is technically our landlord, but he is really our partner. Mike is so kind and supportive. He accepts plug deliveries for us. He lets us store our boxes of seeds in his fridge next to his lunch sandwich. He changes out the coverings on our hoop house without asking for any help. He keeps the porta-john clean with regular maintenance visits. He lets us use his site as a plant pickup back in the pandemic online sales time. He lets us borrow random items without complaint. He answers our questions. He drives his plants to our sales so we can sell them. He lets us disturb his peace every week. Mike is just a thoughtful roommate, and I can tell that he is rooting for us. He wants us to do well, and that really means so much. So Mike came to me in December with the news that he was retiring and selling the property, and that his business was being liquidated. No one wants to take over a micro-propagation operation, he said. And watching how hard Mike and his employee Kenny work, I'm not surprised. And then there's the weather. Do you remember that February night when the winds were howling and the temperature plummeted? We all remember that. Well, that one night, Mike lost the poly covering off his largest hoop house. So all his young seedlings, which take over a year to produce, were all lost from just one night of unprotected, intense cold. The young tender roots just died. So Mike figures he lost about 25% of his inventory that night. So yeah, why doesn't anyone want to do what Mike has done for almost 50 years? The word liquidated just felt so harsh when referring to something that we really love. So we want to do something to honor Mike, his very long run of business, and his very special and unique relationship with us. The board came up with an idea of commissioning a painting, and Francis Topping was willing to accept that challenge. And so, Mike, I'm so glad that you agreed to come today. And on behalf of all of Seed Starters East, on behalf of the board, on behalf of all RIWPS members, we thank you, and we'd love to give you this gift. All right, so Mike, there's your crappy sign. There's all your buildings, and there's a rhododendron.
Thank you.
Very good. So get in the front.
I'm in here. I'm gonna look really tall.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
I was gonna hug you, but I'm a hugger. But yeah, I'm hugging you back. Oh, I wanted to. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Almost got away.
Yeah, advance. All right. So as you've heard, we need a new home. So Mike was kind enough to give us a lot of notice. We have until the fall of 2023, and then we need to pack up the Seed Starters East operation. So don't worry, we're gonna have a normal sales season, and we're gonna have more plants for you than we did last year. But then after that sales season, we do need to pack up and move. So we had a meeting where we kind of made a plan to find a new home. We have people who have been assigned to different organizations to reach out to. If you look at the map and you look at the blue dots, these are where our volunteers are traveling from to work at Plainview. Plainview is the orange dot over on Aquidneck Island. The other orange dot is the Exeter greenhouse owned by Mary and Ray Pezza that you saw the pictures of earlier where the construction project was happening. So we would like to keep Seed Starters East in the East Bay, just so that we don't compete with Exeter in attracting volunteers. That's how we've defined the East Bay. Like, we don't want to go all the way down to Little Compton where Dick Fisher and I live. We want to keep it up more like Tiverton, north to Bristol. It's okay to include Aquidneck Island. We really need a building that we can work in. Like, we're totally happy sharing space, being roommates with someone, but we do need some heat. We need electricity. It would be great to plug in a refrigerator in there. You can store your sandwich with us if you want in there. A year-round water source. Room for a hoop house. If you don't have one, then we can build one. We can provide one. We can put it up. And a hoop house, when we say that, we're just talking about a simple metal skeleton that will have a poly cover over it part of the year and screen over it the rest. We would like ample parking because, you know, we attract probably an average of like 10 volunteers a session. And we would love a restroom because we're not getting any younger, and we're totally happy with the porta potty. That's no problem. So these are some of our basic needs that we're hoping we can find a place that that can accommodate us. And basically, we are not looking to replace Mike Medeiros. That's impossible. But we are looking for a new place to be. So, what's that? What is my list? Oh yeah, that's good. Sorry, Beth, should have warned you. But we are a happy group of people because we're working with plants. We love doing that. So so we are a nice, happy group of people. So if you have ideas, like, as our members, you're sitting out there. If you have ideas, if you could just email the office email. So go to our website, you'll find the office email, share your idea, and Mary Lou, one of the many, many things she does is she forwards emails so that they get to the right people. And so we could have someone reach out and talk to you about your idea. So thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Next, we're going to have short presentations by three recent recipients of grants. Paul Dolan's going to introduce the grant recipients, I believe, one at a time. Right in your face.
Similar to Elvis, here's Brian May. It goes without introduction.
You can keep that. Okay, we are playing Wildflower Jeopardy, folks. First question, or first Jeopardy clue is this individual was born at West Point, where he was a classmate of Robert E. Lee. He was orphaned at the age of 14. He was a friend of Asa Gray, a famous botanist from Harvard, and he was the first professor of botany at Brown University in the late 1800s. He wrote a classic book on the flora of Rhode Island. Does anyone know the answer to this Jeopardy question? That's right. Who is William Whitman Bailey? William Whitman Bailey, a famous quote of his is, "In one of these, there is a spring over which a large witch hazel hangs out in autumn its weird yellow blossoms. It's our habit to lunch at this spot, and the impulse is upon us to tell of these joyous wayside repasts, the pleasant chats, the quips, the jokes, the laughter and song, but we must hasten on." The second question, this website contains the following and more. Info about ferns and fern relatives, carnivorous plants, orchids, violets, and oddities found in Rhode Island, botanical poetry and old botany manuals, spring bloom calendars and coloring pages for kids, humorous manuals on ornithology and animal analogs, a list of Rhode Island rare plants, virtual field trips, and a monthly mystery plant to test your plant ID skills. Does anyone know the answer to this Jeopardy wildflower question? Yes. What is AmongrhodeIslandWildflowers.org? It's a website dedicated to the proposition that William Bailey had it right about the pleasant chats, the quips, the jokes, the laughter, and the song. Well, maybe not the song, but even allowing for that, wild plant people haven't changed much over the years. We are a long tribe here. We still go out looking in the field for the unknown and exploring our wonderful little state. We still want to share stories of great finds and commiserate with one another over the loss and destruction of rare plant populations and habitats. Think about what Mary Lou was saying about Cat Swamp. You know, that was a whole tribute to an area that was lost up in the Providence area. And we're a very small community. We all know each other. And Among Rhode Island Wildflowers is intended to be a center of news and information for the wild plant people of Rhode Island. And this is a screenshot in the upper left, upper right for you, of the original Among Rhode Island Wildflowers website. So this website was created in 2008 by Kathy Martin and Fran Underwood. And they did a beautiful job with it for many, many years. It became a site that I was quite addicted to, not only playing the monthly mystery plant game myself so I could get my name in gold, but also to read all these wonderful things that I listed that are on the site, including the Manual of Ornithology, which I realized was a book that my parents had sitting around when I was a kid and sparked my interest in plants at a very young age. And I think is probably, I have to give that partial credit for where I am now. Kathy was about to give the site up and close it down and made an announcement to this effect in the late part of 2021. And my heart just hit the floor. I panicked. And I said, we can't let this wonderful resource die. So I very quickly, wrote a grant, not a very big one, but thank you, Paul, and the grant committee for giving me $1,000 to get this site reworked by a qualified, actually the same web person that does the RIWPS site. An extensive rework on the site. This ended up costing over $4,000, but we now have a site that is easy to maintain and is fully secure and will carry us for many years into the future without having to learn basic coding. And if anyone's done that, you know what I'm talking about. And I am very grateful to the Rhode Island Wildlife Society board for agreeing to take over this site, particularly Pat Foley and the digital subcommittee to take over the site this year. So this is now part of the growing constellation of RIWPS websites that enrich your lives by exposing you to the beautiful wildflowers of Rhode Island. So I urge all of you, if you haven't yet, to please visit and explore the new and improved Among Rhode Island Wildflowers .org website and play the mystery plant game this month and see if you can get your name in gold next month. Thank you very much.
Our second speaker today is with the Coalition Center for Environmental Sustainability, CC4ES, and it's Susan Golick. Are you here, Susan? Great. Instead of explaining what she's doing, she can do it a lot better than I can.
Hi, my name is Susan Shimgarelli, and CC4ES was created to bridge the gap between resources and the communities in need. And this grant from Rhode Island Wild Plant Society helped me build this urban, which is big urban garden, is actually school and community collaborative hubs. That's what CC4ES built. CC4ES is actually dot connectors, because we have a lot of pocketful of organizations such as yours and small organizations, but we have the same common shared mission, which is we want to have environmental sustainability and outreach education. So if you can, so CC4S, it's actually we're using food justice as a gateway to environmental, social, and economic justice and equity. So as you know, gardening is the huge part of this food path. So if you come to the next slide. So this is basically the project that your organization granted was called Rotary Grows Hope. And it is container gardening program. And the reason that we decide to, actually it's my idea in coming up, I don't know if anyone saw that my sail, repurposed old sail, I made a bag and then put the logo, is to circumvent soil remediation that is necessary in the brown field that is very much only thing available in urban area. Next slide, please. So when you talk about urban area, this is state of Rhode Island, and red line is Interstate 95. And as you can see, here is a legend there. White is all, blue is all white, and does everybody see majority of it is blue? And white, yellow is a Hispanic, and green is Black, and red is Asian, and then this is a multiple other. So what we're focusing on this grant was focusing on Interstate 95 and specifically right the region of so-called Port of Providence. Next slide, please. So when you go into next slide, this is the same Interstate 95, and you can see all these bubbles. These are the community gardens right along the Interstate 95. And the one that particularly that this grant was focused on is this area. So at first I focused on Washington Park, Providence. As you can see, the red lines there, Port of Providence. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this term called frontline communities. Those are the communities not socio-economically disadvantaged, but they are environmentally challenged because they live right near the industrial zone of Port of Providence. As you know, Providence River is one of the two in the nation that has deep depth. So that made it possible Providence become the global center of slave trade. And that still stays there. So Interstate 95 not only promoted this segregation, but highway concretized that segregation, and these communities are still living there, and they are challenged by those daily. The environmental, should I say, pollutions. For example, this area's children asthma rate is second in the state, following Pawtucket and Central Falls, which is congruent to Providence area. So at first, when I applied for this grant, I had conversation and letter of intent with Shell Oil Company. And they actually provided 2 sites. And then when I actually got the grant and then going forward, and the city of Providence zoning said, you cannot build a community garden here because it's so contaminated. So I had to look for a different site. The site, now current garden that was funded by this grant, same this frontline communities, but it's right at the Western Mondo Public Charter School, which is right in so-called the Golden Avenue here. As you can see, Golden Avenue here is called the School Avenue of Schools. There are all schools there. And so it was really helpful that CC4S is this approach using school community collaborative gardens. Now, the reason that we have to have school community collaborative gardens is that less than 50% of these households in these communities, they are homeowners. So they are renters. Majority of them are renter owners. And this area, 80% of them, they are Spanish speaking Latinx. So this project really helped to come up not only remediating this environmental pollution, soil remediation, but also helping people come up with this container garden, but also food sovereignty. So I am really grateful that this, society really helped to make that happen. So we can go into pictures. So this is a school, and this is the plot here, and this small one right here, this is what I created, so-called Gardens of Second Chances. It is named so because I used the Rotary Grows Whole project, which means everything is containing gardening project that repurposes plastic recyclables. We use a 32-ounce, yogurt container, or a salad and spinach container. We make it into little plant, then you make a hole and then put it in. But another thing is we use tree planters. The tree buckets from tree planting. Now this area is also has the lowest tree canopy. So I coordinated with tree forest, city of Providence foresters, and also they have a Providence neighborhood planting program. So I just participate planting, and I said, can I have a tree buckets? So we use tree buckets. It's about at least 5 or at least 10 or 15 gallons one. They serve very well, and because they are safe to use to grow plant. So that's what we here. And also I coordinated for heat treated pellets to use them build as repurposed it as raised garden bed. So that's why it's called the Gardens of Second Chances. It is not only open to school students, but also community members. So it is truly interfacing school, because as I said, these communities, they are majority of them, they are first generation immigrants. So the schools their children goes are the only outlet they can connect with so-called their new world in this community. So next slide, please. Uh-oh.
First, I'll get it.
Aren't you the one who played the Jeopardy? Yes, okay.
I'll fix it. It's frozen.
Okay, that's okay. So next one actually shows the pictures of them. So these Gardens of Second CC4ES has also, you can see these are this is a stone bench, and then the section that you don't see, there's a parking lot, and then here these are the all raised gardens. We have a 12 raised garden bed made of repurposed pallets. But here, as you can see, tree buckets. So we have 24 tree buckets, and we this grant was able to help me pay for native shrubs, blueberries here. So they have a blueberries on this side of the here, and so eventually, what the school is doing. This is only second year for this school. So it's kind of a lot of shifting here. And if you don't mind going back to previous slide, please.
I'll try.
So right here, this is the way the garden is right now. So what's going on right now is they are going to enclose this and then convert this into school building, because right now this is going to be supposed to be K through 12. But it's a public charter school, so they cannot expand more than, I think, adding 2 more grades each year going in there. So here they're going to expand this, but also here is another property that they want to acquire as. So the one that I established here to outreach educate these children as a community member, I created some called STEM Center, which is stand for Environmental Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math Center. Because the reason that CC4ES headquarters right now currently at Western Mundo is because the partnership of they really want to go for student or school-led community engagement for environmental sustainability, as well as food security. As you may have guessed already, this area is designated as food desert by USDA and also identified as HEZ, Health Equity Zones by Rhode Island Department of Health, to tackle all these social determinants. The disparity, I live in Jamestown, so every time I go up there, the disparity that I witness, it is really heartbreaking. And so it is, so that's what made prompted going. So this will be gone, but this is going to be grow, and then we're gonna make it accessible to more people going in. So as you can see, this is outreach education about why we have to do this way. So this coming up, I coordinate with the community libraries of Providence, and I'm gonna have also outreach education about lead in soil, and then how that goes. And then you're gonna say, well, Susan, like this is Rhode Island wild, plant society. What does have anything to do with it? I'm a chemist. I'm an environmental economist. So I'm very hard chemist. So I know what chemistry can do. But plants, they are amazing, especially native plants. They are the really instrumental to remediating soil, restoring soil. So when we just plant this, right now, because it's a soil contaminated, we have to use the container gardening. Eventually, when we build the habitat with the native plants, this will really help restore ecosystem. And then sadly, this is the only way these children in these communities can connect with the nature. So it's again, I am very grateful about this grant. And my next slide, please. So these are the children, and as you can see, and these are the gardens that during the summer, past summer, a few months ago in July, I had a so-called Y for Us, Youth for Urban Sustainability. That's the 6-week intense youth program that I run every summer. And these youth, they're trained to build garden like this. They learn about environmental stewardship. They learn about gardening. They learn about, obviously, container gardening, Rotary Grows a Hope. Again, Rotary Grows a Hope has become a vehicle of all these things going. And these, and you can see Providence Neighborhood Plant program, and we planted 6 trees, and 6th graders, they are the tree keepers of the school, and then they do every day, they actually have a so-called litter free walk. They go around, pick up all the litters around this area and going in there. And these youth during the summer, I have them trained by City of Providence Forester and also PNPP. So they are now certified tree keepers. So they're going in there. And this is, as you can see, the garden close up. So these are again 6th graders. They're making it. And next, and here's another thing that I'm repurposing is old sails. So why sails is, first, we want to make it uniform looking, beautified, but also, as you know, the soils above, you want to have an insulate with the sail. So I use another grant, not this one, just to be clear. I use another grant to buy a sewing machine that I can sew sails. Those sails are really, really thick. So I had students, all the students in West Ramondo trace their hand, and then 6th and 7th grade, the oldest grade, they painted over it. So next week, I think if the weather is permitting, we're gonna wrap this around each of the raised garden bed. They will help not only insulating, but also keep the moisture in. So that's another science factor they're gonna learn. So that's the one. And next slide, please. Is this the last one? That's it. And thank you. And if you have any questions, I guess. I think I way
We're
over.
gonna do the questions later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. It's great to see our money going to worthwhile projects. Our next speaker is Dave Visca. He's going to talk about the rain gardens that they did at Kettle Park.
How do you follow that?
Is it socially responsible?
So if anybody's been at Kettle Pond, the original garden was developed in 2017. And it was a beautiful, 150 by 75 foot area. Came out beautifully. And then the next year, as you drove into Kettle Pond, there was that little sculpture. We redid that area. So here we were, going into the visitor center. And it was overgrown with poison ivy, mugwort, people who, we had bird feeders and people that handled the flag. They didn't even want to walk in there. So I said, help. So next slide. So with the help of a grant from RIWPS, we were able to start a transformation. Next slide. So Tish McGrail, who many of you know, who did all the implementation of the Graham Gartner design for the original gardens. Tish was kind enough to give us some advice, if you will, and recommendations in terms of the garden. And removing some shrubs and changing things, moving things, adding new plants, etc. Next slide, Brian. So one of the things that we had a lot of low bush blueberry. It was overgrown with ferns. Wasn't even propagating fruit. So we took out a lot of the ferns and then we moved some of the low bush blueberries to other areas in the garden. Next one. And then there was the rain garden area where we started the excavation. And if you remember, this was during COVID. This was 80, 90 degree weather. I'll tell you, you talk about workers, and you talk about Noel's here, over here, and digging out the rain garden. And it was a different area. You would think of a rain garden with gutters coming down and the water going into the rain garden. We actually had, the gutters were filled, so it was cascading down. So we built some rocks where the water would cascade on the rocks and then go into the rain garden. Next slide. So you can see our initial efforts where we designed it and we thought we had the right depth, etc. Because the whole idea with the rain garden is that, it's deep enough in the beginning and then it kind of doubles out and so forth. So that the idea is that within 24 hours, the water, is absorbed and the plants absorb it, etc. So you want plants in there that have wet feet, but also can handle the dry conditions. So this was our first attempt. Next slide. So we, with some of the recommendations by Tish, we deepened it, and then we have an overflow area, etc. And then we removed the red cedar actually back, and then eventually we moved it to another spot. Next slide. So we started our first plantings with switchgrass, some spirea, and some bearberry, etc. Bearberry did extremely well. And then we did some elf mountain laurel. And the reason we did the elf mountain laurel is that if you've been to Kettle Pond, you can see that beautiful rock wall structure. So we didn't want it to, we still wanted that to be visible. If you remember from that very first slide, this is a structurally beautiful building, and all of that was, you couldn't see it. Next slide, please. So here's the steeple bush and switchgrass, low bush blueberry, elf mountain in the back, a beautiful winterberry plant, and a bayberry plant. Next slide, please. And then we added cardinal flowers, and then on the berm there, we had some eastern blue-eyed grass and purple love grass and butterfly milkweed. We had some big blue lobelia. We had some pale spike lobelia, and of course the lobelia cardinalis. Next slide. And then, lo and behold, we were going to do these wood. We had some wood blocks, and we were going to use those. And then, as we dug up all the mugwort and all of that stuff, we discovered the original stone walkway. And so here we are. I think that's Betsy who's here, and Noel redoing the walk to the flagpole. Next slide. So over here to the left, we started to do other plantings. We had some wintergreen. We had more of the bearberry. We also had some liatris. We also had some bottle gentian. We had some autumnal sneezeweed. We had quite a variety of plants. Next slide. Yeah, here you see the blazing star, liquid scented goldenrod, swamp azalea, butterfly milkweed, heartleaf asters, etc., which all has done well. And you notice that we use the pine needles there. There's a big pine stand, and so we said, why not use that, keep it natural? And so we used gathered that. We had some mosquito events as we gathered that, but anyhow, we got that and it looks quite nice. But underneath that, we did put some 6 layers of newspaper to have weed control. Next slide. So here it is, a little grown up. You can see the bearberry on the outside. You can see the winter berry there. You can see the wintergreen on the bottom. And it looks quite attractive. Next slide, please. And then here it is, a little later, and you can see the autumnal sneezeweed there. You can see some of the butterfly milkweed, etc. Next slide. And here it is again, more towards the rain garden. Next slide. And so, like we have for all of our plots, we have all of these plot maps with the common name, Latin name, etc. And if you come and visit, you're welcome to have one of those. So it was through the good grace of the Rhode Island Wild Plant Society where we could take that kind of ugly entrance and turn it into this beautiful rain garden area. Thank you. Also, Annie from Revive the Roots. Annie, you had something you wanted to talk about seed sharing. Annie, are you there? Annie? Yeah.
Well, bring it to him.
Yeah, I'll bring it to you. Hold on.
Halfway.
We'll meet in the middle. Annie is also one of our founder plots for seeding Rhode Island.
Hey guys, my name is Annie. I'm from Revive the Roots in Smithfield, Rhode Island. I just wanted to make an announcement. We're having a seed exchange tomorrow from 12 to 3. And we're collaborating with Providence Seed Library, Freed Seed Federation, and the Young Farmers Network. And there's going to be people from all around are going to bring a bunch of seeds as well as those organizations. And yeah, we're going to do some soil blocking demos, just like talk people through how to test the germination on their seed. And that's about it. So it is in Smithfield, Rhode Island at 374 Farnham Pike Road. But if you follow us either on Instagram or go to our website, all the information is there. It's www.revivetheroots.org.
Thank you, David. And Annie? No? Okay. Okay. Now we are going to have a reseeding Rhode Island update with Sue Terrio and Shannon Kingsley. Sue and Shannon, here comes Sue. See, we're gonna get you a seat in front next time.
Just hit the space bar.
Okay, great. Okay, reseeding Rhode Island. I know it's an ambitious title. Can you just raise your hand if you were at our March annual meeting last year? All right, hold it. Okay, all right, good. All right, so this project is based on the Ecotype project that
Separate Alexander spoke about at our last meeting, our last March meeting. The Connecticut project, the idea of it was brought to the board, I would say, back in 2021. And that's when our then Vice President, Sally Johnson, she's here today, and Dave Vizzo, you know, they caught wind of what was going on in Connecticut, and they thought it was something that we should give a try here in Rhode Island. And so 2021, that was a time of like researching, asking a lot of questions, picking the brain of the Ecotype project in Connecticut. And then by January of 2022, a proposal was brought to our board. The board approved it, funded it, and most of that funding went to enabling us to bring a botanist on board. That's our botanist, Shannon Kingsley. She's ours, and she will be speaking later. All right, good. Okay. Every new initiative, even looks like you, Dave. Every new initiative needs someone who believes in it and who will be its cheerleader. And do we know who this is? Like in real life, the show, do we know this show? Yell it out. It's Ted Lasso. You got it. So Ted is an American football coach. He goes to England to coach soccer. He knows nothing about soccer, but he knows a lot about coaching and about people. And one of the first things he does is he hangs his sign in his locker room, and all the players like roll their eyes at it, but then they start really embracing it. And Dave Vizzo is our Ted Lasso. All right, the next one. Okay, so I call this our Hollywood Squares. This is the steering committee that meets every 2 weeks on Zoom. So I'm kind of giving you a behind the scenes look at the not so glamorous part of Receiving Rhode Island. We have Brenda Woodward, who you heard about earlier. Dave talked really eloquently about it. Don't worry, since the last few weeks, I have learned to take a screenshot on my computer, so I don't have to use my phone to take the picture, but there I am. Peggy Buttonbun has since fixed her computer, so we now see her face. Peggy, I call her the seed queen. She keeps track of the seeds at Seed Starters East. She is, we're so lucky to have her. She organizes the volunteers for the seed cleaning, for the seed sowing. Then we have Pat Foley. He probably looks the happiest of anyone because he's kind of new to the steering committee, so he's not so worn out. But we're so happy to have him as our new president, and he brings his whole sort of business side, digital communication side with him. There's Mary O'Connor, who was instrumental in the logo that you just saw. She's also a digital communications person, but also a volunteer at Seed Starters West. There's Amanda Freitas, who works at the Rhode Island DEM. So after a long day of work, she joins us. She has so much knowledge, so many connections to share. I've already talked, that's the famous face, the famous Zoom face. That's Dick Fisher smiling right there. And then we've got our botanist, Shannon. So there have been other people involved in the steering committee since we first started. Can you stand? Anybody who's out there in the audience right now, don't be shy. Stand up so we can give you a quick, there's Sally Johnson. Come on, where's the rest of you guys? And Dave Regular out there. There's Dave Vizzo. Where is Nikki? Nikki. Okay, good. Brian Maynard, you made a guest appearance. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next one. Okay, this slide is just totally indulgent on my part. I've always wanted to share this with people, and this is the only crowd that would like this slide. So there you go. So the premise of reseeding Rhode Island is that our botanist Shannon collects seeds from the wild. The seeds are grown into small seedlings. They are transplanted into seed beds of about 200 plants per species. And then the seed can therefore be harvested once the plant is mature. So you're taking a little bit of wild seed, you're generating a lot of seed, and you're doing it without going back and disrupting the wild population. That's the idea behind it. And I got involved as the plant sale chair because I wanted a source, we all wanted a source of ecotypic seed that we could grow out, that we could bring to our sales. But we know that in order to reseed Rhode Island, we need to actually, it's not just about RIWPS getting seed, it's about getting it into the hands of other growers so that, as Amanda says, we can just get more of this stuff in the ground, and that stuff being our ecotypic plants. So things were going well. We had Shannon, we put together a species list. She was getting her permissions and collecting. Dave and Brenda and Dick were out there talking to farms that would host the seed beds. Peggy was organizing our volunteers. Barbara Shaughnessy was lined up to oversee the growing of the seedlings. Things were really rolling. And then it was November. What movie is this? Yeah, who said it? All right, way to go. All right, I have one space person out there, so you're gonna get this. So all of a sudden, Houston, we have a problem. And the problem was that we were counting on the in getting the old Rhody native hoop house on East Farm, and that's where we were going to grow out these seedlings. But we were hoping for a free greenhouse, and URI's leadership changed, priorities changed. We got the word. It was about November that no, this hoop house isn't available for use, which we are under this time crunch because we wanted to get those seeds sown so that they could go through their winter stratification period. So we kind of had a deadline of late December, early January to have a home for reseeding Rhode Island, and we didn't have one. So this was our first bump in the road. But unlike Apollo 13, I just kept telling myself that we're not trying to get 3 astronauts home who are stranded in space, and we're just trying to grow a few plants here. And so I was like, what would Ed Harris do? And so for people who don't know, he's playing the role of he leads mission control, and he's just this is a true story. He leads mission control, and he's just really calm, cool, and collected. And he just says, like, we've got to work the problem. We've got to work the problem. And so when I was really stressed out, I just pretended I was on Ed Harris's team, and we're just going to work the problem. And so we worked the problem. This is Emma and Rob Phaneuf and their young son Chase, and they are the owners of Chickasha Farm. And so Dave went to Chickasha. He had talked to them previously about maybe hosting some founders plots, and he went back to them because of their close proximity to URI, because they were supportive of RIWPS, because Emma's grandmother was actually mentioned at our November meeting. She is the granddaughter of Millie House, who was, Okay, Paul laughed. Isn't it crazy? All right, so she's the granddaughter of Millie House, and Millie House was one of our original trustees. So Emma and Rob, they have an interest in native plants. They were open to talking to RIWPS. They spent a lot of time with us. We were crunching numbers. We were visiting. We were talking back and forth. It was probably about 2 weeks. They spent a lot of time with us. So what I would say is if you're ever on Route 138 and you need some annuals, or maybe you need a pumpkin or wreaths, stop in. But also, they want to get into native plants. So maybe stop in this summer and be like, hey, do you have any native plants yet? We'd really like to support them. So we couldn't go with Chickasha because basically, all right, this is a harder question. We're still in Apollo 13, but what are they doing in this picture? Can anybody tell me? I'm counting on you in the blue shirt because you're the only one who knew it was Apollo 13. Do you remember what they're doing? He's good. That's exactly what is going on. Yay! Yeah, round of applause. Let's go. You guys getting? So they're in mission control. They are building a prototype to basically scrub the air to get the CO2 out of it because CO2 levels are starting to rise. And so they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Oh yeah, there it is, into a round hole. And they don't have a lot to work with. So this is what sometimes being like working with native plants, it feels like, because we're trying to grow native plants, but we're always trying to grow them in like housing situations where annuals are grown. And like native plants need to feel the cold, they need to experience the season. So it's like, so Chickasha just didn't work for that reason. And so just like in Apollo 13, those 3 astronauts make it home. Like, I mean, it took a gravity assist from the moon. They had to power down the LEM. They were really cold, but they land in the ocean and they land in a spot. And so did we, Seeding Rhode Island. We also landed in a spot. And that spot was Barbara Shaughnessy's backyard. So here we are. We're also trying to do this without a hoop house. So what we have here are 12 of these 4x8 boxes that are set up in her yard. They're basically just made of wooden screen. And the plug trays are sitting in there right now. They're closed up. And to kind of simulate a hoop house, they actually have like a plastic poly on the top. And that is to kind of help keep the seeds cool. So it's blocking some of the sun's radiation to keep them cool. That plastic will come off. Shade cloths can be put on. So basically we have like 12 mini hoop houses set up in Barbara's backyard. All right, just to give a shout out. So the orange coat is Bill Terrio. He is my husband. And in all of this craziness, we borrowed some of these boxes from the Rhode Island Natural History Survey. Thank you. And then Bill Terrio built the rest. Thank you. So, you got it right. Guys, thank you, because he needs encouragement. He's already thinking, there's so many other places I could be right now. And it is like, all right, it's not March Madness yet, right? But there's probably a basketball game on at this point. It is March Madness? Oh, all right. So Bill, thanks for being here. Apparently it's all weekend, so you're good, you're good. All right, so we worked the problem. The seedlings are there. Barbara Shaughnessy is awesome. She's checking on them every day. And so the last slide. And so here we are. We have farms lined up. I don't really want to say any names yet because we're, we're still, we want to articulate our expectations, and I don't want to say any names yet, but one name we can't say is Annie, who talked about her seed exchange that she's having tomorrow. So she's excited about helping us out. So we're just at that point where we are figuring out that farm agreement. We're just figuring out our new collection list for this year because Shannon will be out doing some more collections. We are excited about doing some shrub collections, but basically lots to figure out, a good team behind the project figuring it out. But in the meantime, if you have ecotypic seed needs, can you please reach out to eco59.com? I'll say it again, eco59.com. That is the for-profit seed company that Dina Brewster is running. Dina is out there in Connecticut. She is a farmer. She has lots of her own seed beds. But basically, she's the one that's like kind of processing the seed from the Connecticut project. And you can sell, you can buy it. You can go online. You can buy seed packs. You won't see a lot online right now. It's a funny time to try to buy seed, but more in the fall, you'll see lots of species of seed. We are buying those for our plant sales, and we are talking to Dina about ways to collaborate. So I hope you can support the Connecticut Ecotype Project as well. And so now that's the list, the behind the scenes, not so glamorous part of this project. But now, Shannon.
Hi, I'm Shannon, and I am in charge of collecting the seeds for the Reseeding Rhode Island project. So as Sue mentioned, we started with developing a species list. These were all species that could tolerate full sun, drier growing conditions, common species, because of course we're not collecting anything rare, and also species that had a high pollinator value. And also some grass species that would help with overwintering insects, providing food to native birds, etc. So once we had that target list of species that we were looking to collect, I worked with multiple different organizations across Rhode Island to get written permission. So these were lots of land trusts, working with Rhode Island DEM, Audubon Society. And this project would not have happened without the help of like so many different people, telling me where I might find a native wild population of a species we were looking for, giving me permission to collect on private land, and also public land. So next we worked on finding those populations. Is that the next? Sorry, not next yet. But that's okay. So we worked on finding the populations, and then also documenting these findings with GPS coordinates, and also collecting voucher specimens. So for anyone who doesn't know what a voucher specimen is, it's just when you collect a piece of plant material from a living plant, press it in a plant herbarium, and then that serves as like a piece of physical data about the stage of life of that plant when you found it and where it was found, and associated species that it was found with. All right, next. Well, that's okay.
Oh, don't worry, Shannon.
Okay, so these are just some of the groups that I worked with over the last year. I would just like to name a couple people. John Vale was amazing, helped me with finding a lot of populations. He's part of Rhode Island DEM. I worked with Joy and Joseph at Norman Bird Sanctuary to find a really healthy population of swamp milkweed. And then people of Town of Cumberland Land Trust, and then also Mark Doherty of Westerly Land Trust, was awesome. I collected a lot of species at Grills Preserve. So just, you know, again, this is like total group effort. I'm alone in the field collecting, but it would not be possible without everybody's help. So here is the final collected species list. So we collected 30 species. So again, these are all native, all wild populations. So they were never seeded, and they're all ecotypic. So they were all seeds that originated here. So these are the 30 species. You know, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just some fun ones of note. We collected a lot of different asters. We collected Indian grass. We collected a lot of different goldenrods, including downy goldenrod, gray goldenrod, and then 3 different species of lobelia and multiple mountain mints. What else is fun on here? We have a swamp milkweed and 3 different kinds of the bone set thoroughwort. All right, next. Okay, and so then in green here, we have all of the species that we seeded. So that's a little bit what Sue was talking about at Barbara Shaughnessy's, but we had lots of volunteers and people in our steering committee helping to make that happen. So these seeds were all winter sown at Barbara's, and then everything that's not in green, these seeds are in refrigeration at Natural History Survey. All right, next. So I just want to give this is the glamorous look at the project. I got to go to so many beautiful places in Rhode Island over the last year. And, you know, we're not going to divulge like where exactly we got these species because we want to protect these wild populations. But, you know, we have the Wood River in Exeter. That's my dad in a canoe. He very graciously paddled alongside me as I was waiting in the river to collect cardinal flower and monkey flower. We have Cumberland, where I collected swamp milkweed. We have a beautiful site in Warren where I collected bushy blue stem and a species of it was ragged thoroughwort. And then I worked with John Vale, like I said, in South Kingston at Great Swamp to collect some mountain mints. So I was recently asked whether this work is as glamorous as it looks and as fun, and it is. So I have a wonderful time being in the field collecting these seeds. So, all right, next. Okay, and so for part of collecting from wild populations, we follow the Seeds of Success protocol, which is outlined by the Bureau of Land Management. And this basically just gives a guideline for collecting seeds from wild populations in a sustainable manner. So that includes not collecting from any population that has less than 50 individual plants. It means collecting seed on multiple occasions, so you're not collecting all the seed in one go, and not collecting any more than 10% of the seeds in one event. And it also means monitoring the populations that I'm collecting from throughout the season. So here we have on the left, common bone set, looking really healthy, it's about to bloom. And then on the right, we have it going to seed. So this is an example of a population that was healthy throughout. So I visited this population multiple times throughout the summer and then in the fall to collect seeds. And it was, you know, I felt comfortable collecting seeds from these populations. All right, next. This is an example of when things don't go so smoothly. So on the left, we have swamp milkweed. This was a population that looked great. I found it, documented it, and then it was covered in milkweed aphids in about mid-July, August. And so because of the milkweed aphids and some other insects and insect damage on the plant, I didn't feel comfortable collecting seeds from this population because we want these wild populations to be able to sustain themselves in the future. So we pivoted. We worked with Norman Bird Sanctuary, where we found a beautiful population of swamp milkweed in the middle, and then we have the seeds on the right. And if anyone has cleaned swamp milkweed, you know it's a pain. So with all that fluffy stuff. So, all right, next. Okay, This is the part I'm most excited for. So these are the seeds, like why we're all here. So I used so after the seeds were, I should back up. So after the seeds were collected, we cleaned them with a group of volunteers, with people from our steering committee. We did this at the Natural History Survey. They very generously let us use some seed cleaning supplies and their space. And then I photographed all the seeds. So I used a 50 millimeter macro, which is just basically a lens that zooms really close into the seeds. And we did this for, scientific purposes to like document what we're doing. This grid paper is 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters, which is super hard to visualize, but that's basically like a fourth of a penny in diameter. So it's really tiny, but these look really big because the macro lens is supposed to, it's used to highlight like the intricacies of the seeds, the depth, the little curves. And so we have swamp milkweed here on the left, hairy bush clover on the right. And I just included these because I think they're fun and just, kind of helps to see how beautiful these seeds really are. All right, next. All right, so then on the left, we have monkey flower. On the right, we have wild geranium. So there you can see that like seed to seed size comparison. Those little monkey flower are just super, super tiny. All right, next. And then we have the flax-leaved aster on the left and the weedy-leaved aster on the right. Even though they're, in the same family, Asteraceae, there's still such unique differences between the two seeds. So you can see that like kind of hairiness on the flax-leaved aster and those cool little like white lines going down the wavy-leaved aster. All right, next. And then I think this is the last one on the seeds, but that's the New York ironweed on the left and little blue stem. The seeds are actually right up top in that first grid. Okay. All right, and so kind of next steps, this growing season, we are going to be collecting a lot of the same species that you saw on that list. And then also, as Sue said, including some new species of shrub and also collecting more spring blooming species because that's our list was a little short on that end. And then we're also working on doing more like outreach, education, and part of that is developing our Reseeding Rhode Island Instagram. If you're not following us on Instagram, if you go to Instagram, you can type in Reseeding RI and then click the little follow button. And that's where you can keep up to date with, what we're doing, how the little seedlings are coming along. We should have those photos, in the next month or two for Barbara. And just, it's just a bit of fun and also, a place where you can learn more about native plants and also what Reseeding Rhode Island is doing specifically. If you have populations of wild native plants on your property that you've never seeded and think that they'd be good, you can contact me at seed.collection@rips.org. I would love to hear from you because I'm always looking for more populations to find. But yeah, and I think that's all I have. Thank you.
So, speak for just a minute. We've got a few minutes left. I thought I'd just check and see if anybody had any questions for Sue or Shannon. It was a fantastic presentation, but any questions? Yes, Apollo 13.
As far as food houses, I think we're going to talk about having with
I didn't hear the question.
I did. Okay, the question was, in terms of hoop houses, and I guess would you mean for Seed Starters East and its new home, or would you mean for Reseeding Rhode Island, or either? So that's an interesting point. We are actually exploring one possibility for housing Seed Starters East it is like a retirement home setting. So I think that's a really interesting idea. And it's also, we are really open to anything, as long as it has like certain basic needs that we need, which for Seed Starters East, you know, I went over previously, but we just want to say we're really open to anything. And at RIWPS, we are education oriented as well. So like anytime we can involve others in learning about what we're doing. So like a retirement home that might have people who could like participate. Like we just get really excited about that. So. So the land stewards for reseeding, so they are organic farms or farms that are practicing organic practices. And we also do have one land trust that we're going to give a try. And so we have, the number changes a little bit, but I think we have 5 to 6 farms and we have one land trust at the moment. But again, this is a new emerging project, and like if you have ideas, we are so open to hearing from you. So.
Yeah. Pat, yes.
Yeah, so Sue, maybe just in the spirit of the suggestion that was just made and just to your general presentation, what would be useful if somebody does have an idea? Would you like them to foster an introduction, get you a contact? What would be the best way for that idea to be followed up by the team?
So I think the best way is just like the Seed Starters East leads, is to email the office, email Mary Lou, photo up, email Mary Lou. Oh, it's an action shot. Email. Okay, good. Look interested. Okay. All right. Email Mary Lou Uplum at our office email, and you can get that on the RIWPS website. And she will like give a little blurb of what you're thinking. She will. She knows where to forward that. And then a lot of times, if you include your phone number, then you know the email then turns into like either another email or a phone conversation. Like we can take it from there. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sue and Shannon. That was tremendous. I have one more announcement before we go. Those of you who got here early may have noticed quite a large pile of books, collection of books out on the table in the lobby. Those were books that were donated to us by Gary Plunkett, and we sold them. Sort of reminded me of a plant sale. When I walked by there just before we came in here, the table was almost not quite bare, but there may be a few books left. I'd like to have Gary stand up for a quick round of applause. And with that, if there's no other business, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all very much for coming. What do I do? Off?
No, just plug it back in.
Oh, okay. Oh. Let's see, that may